This was the first audio cinema which was opened, and at that time when the cinema was opened, basically it was a family event. So the cinema was a very big affair. We had front page, full page advertisements, plus other advertisements everywhere, and there was a lot of build up as well in the papers, national papers, about the cinema coming up.
Every night, the streets were empty. Because inside, lovers held hands, children laughed, and the routine of everyday life was forgotten. Because here at the Cinema Paradiso, someone is making their dreams come true.
When I was very small, I must have been about 10 or 12, and people asked me what I'd like to be. My cousins said they want to be doctors, but I want to be the man who opens and closes the doors of the cinema. That was my passion. Then I can see all the movies all the time. These walls can talk many stories. These chairs can also tell many stories of people experiencing something very intimate in the dark space, air-conditioned, lovely ambience here, and those are things that sort of I feel when I come here to the Rio, as well as seeing Cleopatra or Sound of Music or the other things everybody talks about. Although I was not allowed to see Helga.
Kompanjavediya, which is called Slave Island. The main suburb of the capital of this country is multiracial and multireligious. There is no dearth of historical places and buildings here linked to colonial times. Kompanjavediya is also a commercial city with a multitude of various businesses and shops belonging to various races. It is home to places of worship of many religious as well as military camps and a number of government departments. Kompanjavediya is familiar with the winds blowing from the oceans on the one side and the popular Bere Lake on the other. However, it lacked a modern state-of-the-art cinema theatre to enjoy the latest cinematic experiences developing in the world. Though a standard cinema theatre with the name Navah Cinema started in 1951 by Appa Pillai Navaratnam, the grandfather of Ratnaraja Navaratnam was in existence and was mostly screening Indian Tamil and Hindi films. It was against such a backdrop that a clever businessman by the name of Navaratnam prepared plans to fulfill this need. At the same time, he contemplated that this should not be an ordinary type of cinema hall as well. Navaratnam's dream was to create a paradise where the whole family could enjoy not only a cinematic experience but also the aesthetic taste of life. He prepared the blueprint for all features for a complete cinematic experience that had never existed in this country, including the screen, sound and the seating plan. This included meals, sweetmeats, liquor and space for recreation. Hence, it was a cinematic paradise. This paradise named Rio was presented to the people of this country with a week-long festivities. In fact, it was similar to a 7-day wedding festivities.
Lots of people in Sri Lanka were waiting for the 70mm movies to come, and then when this was being the first cinema, it was a huge affair, and we started off the opening of the cinema with Lengopala, who was the Governor General at that time, with his wife, and then also the Prime Minister at that time, Ms. Bandanaka, also was supposed to come, but she was unable to come. Her daughter Chandrika and the son Anura, and later she became the President, Her Excellency, I suppose. She also came for the cinema opening. So we had Mr. Vijaya was also coming one day for the opening. So we had all the leaders and people coming, a lot of people from various walks of life. And the first show we started the cinema was with a movie called South Pacific.
I think these walls can talk many, many stories. And even these armrests, of course the chairs were more comfortable. These must have been from the cheaper seats.
Filling the screen with magnificent music. From the same Rodgers and Hammerstein who gave you The Sound of Music. South Pacific. For those who
It was a musical. In those era when all these films were, the popular family cinema used to be a family entertainment center, so they had a lot of the musical shows that were coming out. And that era you would see a huge lot of people. Then of course the cinema as such was a family place. People could come with the family. There were different areas with this thing. And so the concept of family outing in that period, going to cinema to watch a family film was very, very common.
And it was a family event. We didn't come alone. We came with friends. And normally the relations, the whole row would be bought for us. So that we came together. And once the movie was finished, we wouldn't go home. It was opposite here on the other side. That Manning Mansion building had two attractions. One was Harmonics, that was the music shop. Then we could go there and look around, buy sheet music. Those are where I get the notes and the text. And also, like for The Sound of Music, they published a book with all the songs. So then, as we went on coming to see this movie over and over again, we knew all the songs by heart. We didn't have long play records at home, but this was the entertainment at that time.
The Paradise Rio set its brand by marking a crossroad in the cinematic history of this country. Time passed quickly along with many changes. New structures were built amidst ancient buildings, some were linked to tall giants reaching towards the sky. Meanwhile, the public arriving with the entire families continued to enjoy the new cinematic inspirations of Rio. They returned again and again to enjoy these inspirations. The aesthetic values around Rio too increased to cater to the audience arriving from all parts of the country. This paved the way towards enhanced profits on the street sales of film songbooks, records, valuable photographs of film actors and actresses, etc. Navaratnam, who established a new cinema company by the name of Associated Cinemas Limited, presented the results of the healthy cinema to the audience. This was during the decade of the 70s. Plans were afoot to hold the non-aligned summit in Sri Lanka. Navaratnam was a far-sighted and clever businessman.
My father was a businessman. Printing was his major business he had. And my great-grandfather had the first colour printing in Sri Lanka, based in Slave Island. Slave Island was actually an area which was like Kotena on the other side, Slave Island on this side of Fort, but very next to the heart of the city. So had a lot of the business operations were here, a lot of the residents were here. To find that in the Slave Island area. So my father continued to work in Slave Island area, and he always believed in Slave Island area was being next to the fort would develop into a thing, and he continued to develop this cinema here. And then it was one of the major stories in the film industry in the country. Following that, of course, he had started the cinema circuit as well, which was called Associated Cinemas Limited, with my brother was also working with him at that time, had come back from England, joined him, and then they were building up a circuit of films as well. From the printing trade and the cinema, my father wanted to get into the hotel trade here because Fort had, and at that time there were hardly any hotels in Colombo other than the old Golf Face Hotel and the GOH, Grand Orient Hotel, and out of Colombo was Mount Lavinia. Other than that, there weren't many hotels. So my father, with the non-aligned conference coming on, we decided to build a hotel tour, which was a 55, 60-room hotel in the same premises, in the same land, but on the side separately with the swimming pool and all that. This hotel was going fairly okay, well at that time, and we had a lot of the Indian tourists, Indian businessmen come to stay here. Plus we had a lot of the Russian tourists also coming, and this was also the hotel Singapore Airlines used to put their passengers as well. I remember that one too. So the hotel was done by my father here.
The burning spark system of the projector used to convey the cinematic images on the screen was a new introduction to the cinema theatres in this country at that time. The cinematic experience created by this was new. However, it failed to maintain a continued balance with the changing world around. Though 35mm films too were screened at the Rio, the world began to modernize along with it. The world was turning towards newer communication and technological processes. The management of Rio, which failed to develop in parallel, left the hands of the Navaratnam family.
එතකොට මේම සිනමා සාල බදු වශයෙන් අරගත්තා රත්නායක මහත්තයා කියලා ෆිල්ම් කෝපරේෂන් එකේ හිටපු චෙයාමන් මහත්තයා. ඒ 2003 ඉඳන් මම ඔපරේටර් වශයෙන් සේවය කරා. ඒ සේවය කරන අතරේ මේ ප්‍රොජෙක්ටර් දෙක තමයි මම එනකොට තිබුණේ. මේ කාලේ අවසන් වෙලා දැනට මේ අයිතිකරුවන නවරත්න මහත්තයා සිනමා සාලව ගත්තා. අරන් සම්පූර්ණ අලුත් වැඩියා කරලා මේ මුකුම් දෙකේ සම්පූර්ණ හොඳ තත්ත්වයට ගන්න මේ මහත්මයා වියදම් කරලා මම වෙනුවෙන් මම අමර ජීව ඕන දෙයක් කරගන්න මම වියදම් කරන්න හදාගන්න කියලා හැදුවා.
Navaratnam's younger son Ratnaraja Navaratnam was successful in regaining the management into his hands to safeguard the extraordinary assets of his father. His desire was to regain the golden standards and success that the Rio had enjoyed during the decades of 60s and 70s. Meanwhile, the cinema industry of this country had undergone vast changes. The National Film Corporation of Sri Lanka too had been established. With its establishment, it had sponsored the production of local film production and had also taken over the authority of importing and distribution of films. The current representative of the Rio, which for the first time introduced the modern trends the world cinema to this country, witnessed all these. He understood them and engaged in struggles. He recalled the new methodologies introduced into this country by his father.
70mm, because the original cinemas that were here was 35mm, and they had optical system of sound. So when Michael Todd and they developed this, Michael Todd was husband of Elizabeth Taylor, and when he developed this, Michael Todd with others, with the American optical technology and people like that, and they formed a company that was called the Toddio. So Todd for Michael Todd, AO for American Optical.
How do you solve a problem like Maria? How do you catch a cloud and pin it down? How do you find a word that means Maria? A flippity gibbet or will-o'-the-wisp, a clown.
But the whole thing was original shooting, and that technology was, the negative was 65mm, while the print was done on 70mm. At the 70mm they adapted, instead of the optical sound, they had the magnetic strip. Magnetic strip, they introduced 5 tracks of sound. In other words, they could create a surround sound with each of those tracks. So we would have 5 amplifiers, different amplifiers, each from each magnetic track going in and coming up. So we had probably 3 speakers behind, and at that time we had also another speaker, bass speaker was there. Woofers was not in, has not been developed those days. Bass speakers were there. So there was a huge bass speakers also behind the screen. On both sides, right and left, had different sets of speakers right along the wall that's going around. And in the back of the cinema also had it. So when we had the opening and the introduction, we had an introduction little movie that was called going on roller skating. The roller skating was, people who sat on it came for the movie, believed that they were sitting inside the roller skate, going up and down. And I remember lots of the ladies walking out of the cinema for that few minutes when the roller skating movie was going. They were getting so scared. The sound effect was so effective in that.
When I first sat here and watched a movie, the lights went off, and then they lit up the curtain, which was a very beautiful pink-colored curtain, and then an orchestra started playing. We were thinking, now where is this? Is there an orchestra live here? But then it was coming from the balcony. So then somebody said, don't talk. The children always talk at movies. And then we had to listen to this orchestra playing an overture, which was quite unusual. And then the film started.
People who came for the movies also were the Sri Lankan producers. I remember them coming in. I was a little boy, but still, Gamli Fonseca, Mr. James Perry's, and people of that nature also used to come to watch the movies, and we had a common book. They would write on the common book as well, how good it is, and to see movies of that nature.
And this was a luxurious place. It was not like the Roxy, where there was smoke and it was very dark, and my father was very much against going to those movie halls because he said that's a very unhealthy place and that is not art with all that cigarette smoke. But here they said it was fully air conditioned and it was a family event. I
know lots of people who came out of Colombo who'd come regularly, and they would give them, and before they come down, they'd phone us and say, could you keep some tickets for them, reserve the seats. So we would reserve. But though we did have advanced booking system at the cinema, we helped the people who were coming from outstation who got known to us, who would come regularly from outstations as far as Kandy and different places to watch the movies, because some of the 70mm movies that came here were never shown elsewhere.
The common masses as well as intellectuals had made it their habit to patronize the Rio, which attracted every member of the family towards a single location to enjoy the genuine arts. The Rio provided seating for all of them. The youths were the most tempted to occupy the front rows of the seats in this super theatre, which comprised several classes of seats.
Talking about cheaper seats, we used to enter from this door after the lights have gone off and go and sit in the ODC because we couldn't afford the expensive seats. We knew there was a super balcony and also so very fancy places upstairs, but we were school children, not much pocket money, and if you are watching the same movie for 3 or 4 times, you had to stretch the money. So we came late and didn't look back, went and sat, and after the show was over, we went off before the lights came on. Now, this is the area that we would sit, and then you have the full screen in front of you. It's better than sitting at the balcony and watching it in a distance.
Hindi films were sometimes screened at the Rio, which had never screened any Sinhala films. That too were in between intermediate screenings. By this time, a local film circuit built had been operated by the National Film Corporation. Rio belonged to the National Film Corporation circuit. Hence, Rio had to screen films that were imported and distributed by the National Film Corporation. Along with this, many crises had emerged within the film production sector in the country. Sometimes adequate films to be screened at cinema theatres were not produced.
It's an era where we felt that we lost a lot due to hard work. What was built up can go up in smoke in one night. It's not an easy thing.
The brutal flames of racism emerged. The hours were filled with mixed sounds of gunshots and laments. The flames engulfed the assets built with the greatest difficulties. Frenzied mass groups chased after innocents fleeing or trying to hide with the desire to live. The Rio, constructed with great hardships and loved by the multi-religious, multiracial man from Kompanjavidya named Navaratnam, too was engulfed by these flames. The present heirs of the Navaratnam generation who committed themselves towards the existence of Rio were unfortunate to witness their honors going up in flames. This misfortune that began in Colombo and spread island-wide marked a black spot on the history of Sri Lanka. Only the skeleton of Rio with coal marks was left behind by the looters and frenzied people who grabbed the resources and fled.
Hotel was a concrete block building that it didn't catch fire, but then we found that a lot of things were looted from there. Of course, the things were left as it is, but over the years, the Rio Hotel and Rio Cinema and the premises along with this has become very popular among the contemporary art people. Like Columbuscope had many shows here and many others have had. We had a drama also had at different created areas, different areas to have. We have lots of shooting takes place for the musical shows here, musical people, videos they release, they come and shoot here. We had a shooting for a couple of movie scenes were done here. So we have had a lot of different concept also. We have also had the Sri Lanka thing where they had the clothes from different parts of the country, the other items from different parts of the country, food from different parts of the country. Someone took it over a weekend, 3 days. They had this show here, which proves to be very, very popular among the young people more so than others. So we have quite a demand in this space. But this seems to be the new thing that going around all over the world. Again, you find that these spaces, all creating the old spaces into something new happening. With all the lot of space that's available here, they could have quite successful shows. They will have about 2,000, 3,000 people a day visiting for these shows with the different things, and it has become very popular among many people. Inside the hotel, you'll find that the people have on the rooftop, lots of shooting takes place. Even a couple of days ago, we had a shooting for the Olympic Sri Lankan team going. They want to do a filmlet there. They did that there too. So this process of over the time now, this has become very popular, and regularly people come to do their shows here and things here.
The machines here will be activated towards the conservation of the flame-engulfed families. Certain elderly groups will arrive here and enjoy a different cinematic experience while being of assistance to them. However, all these are in the face of an impending danger. Rio is like a myth going from prosperity into devastation. Rio, with its losing pride, is being trapped amidst the giant shadows of the huge constructions that began in the 20th century. Plans have been completed to lie down on the ground on which it once stood tall. In a nearby date has scheduled the final ray of light from the paradise that was Rio will extinguished. A new giant is expected to be constructed upon it.